That's fantastic. We were muted that time. So again, sorry about that. Welcome, Jay Hooligan.
Look at me.
Glad I caught that, so we're not doing the whole thing on mute. Yes. So
That'd be nice.
that would be nice.
Maybe they can like read lips or
Yeah,
something.
if you can
like
read
that.
lips, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. Anyways, I forget what we were saying. Oh, it's almost the end of March. That's what we're saying.
And
Almost end of the
next
month.
week is next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday
Is the one.
is the end
the
of the
last,
month.
not
Yes.
Tuesday.
Yeah. So apologize for the mute on there. That was a little funny though. just so you know, yeah. Anyways, so there is a lot going on that we got going on. Trying to keep it up, and we're already into March, almost already going into April. A lot of the things are ramping up in the film industry. Like this is coming up, I believe April is when they're going to be doing the Oscars. I don't think we're going to be watching, but not just that, but film festivals are starting to come up, so we're trying to ramp up for some of those as well. Anyways, I'm totally drawn by that. Threw me off with the whole mute thing. Anyways, but before we get into today's subject, if you want to support our channel, hit the subscribe button below and go to patreon.com/hidehooliganfilms, and so you can subscribe to our channel and like I said, support us in what we do. We'd like to do all these live lunches. It helps us keep you guys informed, helps keep us on edge. And if not, if you want to support us with some of our shirts, our RPG IRL shirts, you can go to thewanderinghkiltsman.com/shop and buy any of our shirts. We're actually coming out with new designs fairly soon. So that's what we got going on. Okay, so today's subject. What was today's subject?
It was extremism.
Yep.
But
Only work
in film.
Does extremism only work in movies? So that's an interesting question that I thought came up. I forget how it came up. I totally forget how it came up on there. I mean I have been going on Twitter a little bit more, so I get to see the extremism more readily available. I guess it's more readily available on social media, most especially on Twitter. It's very, very toxic and people
Volatile.
are volatile. Yes, very, very volatile on there, and it got me thinking about just extremism in general, and now it's a really interesting concept, considering that we have two sides of ourselves, and one being the emotional side and the other kind of being that rational, logical side, and they operate on almost two different levels in a lot of places. And if you've watched any of our videos beforehand, when we talk about emotions, we do talk about your lower brain and your higher brain. Your higher brain is the more logical side. Your lower brain is the one that's those base emotions that kind of drive those extreme sort of behaviors based off of feelings. Right? So this is a little bit of a hybrid, crossing over from being the best version of yourself, understanding yourself, and how it pertains to like what we see in movies. And in movies, and when we talk about story, we also talk about a lot of how when stories become stagnant, it's hard to connect to, and it's that emotional side that can't connect us. So just kind of diving back into the emotions and how it relates to everything and everybody. I had an interesting thing in a book that I'm listening to right now, and it said facts don't matter. Facts do not convince people to change. It's emotions that cause people to change. And they gave the example of the smoker who says, the smoker that says, I can quit anytime. But then many times in a lot of those cases, they don't until they've got like triple bypass surgery, if even at that time, because the fact they already know for a fact that they are killing themselves, or they know all the studies, they know all the facts. It just doesn't matter. It's not until that emotional side hits that some sort of change is elicited. So that brought up again that listening to all these things all kind of culminated in these past couple days, but it really got me thinking about that and how that can relate to people.
That doesn't necessarily go for everybody, right?
Absolutely not.
Some people change because they want to change, or stop because they want to stop.
Yes. So when we talk about extremism, right? It's essentially taking an extreme, and I think we touched base upon this. Didn't we touch base upon this last week a little bit? It was like teeter tottering. You know, if you go to one extreme, it's like a big teeter totter. You go one extreme, and then the reaction is it's like that rocking boat. You get tipped over to one side, everybody runs to the other side to try to balance it out, and then everybody runs back to the other side to balance it out, and it just keeps kind of going back and forth. And it's essentially creating momentum for each other to just go further and further off in that teeter tottering sort of momentum that they've got, not realizing like they want that steady, they want to feel comfortable. However, it's like that knee jerk
like
to go back to the other side.
Both sides wanting to be heard, but nobody wanting to compromise.
Absolutely,
right?
Yep. And and that's absolutely what it is, you know. And compromise ends up in the middle. And we mentioned this before. Compromise is essentially, you know, something is sacrificed on both sides. There must be some sort of sacrifice on both sides to reach a middle ground, and that requires people to let go of ego, right? So you have to let go of ego in order to find that middle ground and find a compromise. You know, otherwise there's no compromise. There's only how do they put it? People, like I said, people don't want compromise, they want compliance. I think that's the way that I heard it earlier this week. And it was like, that was a great point, because that's the thing. It's like they just want you to conform. People want you to conform to their beliefs. They can't accept accept alternate views on a subject, or they can't compromise in some sort of way to like, hey, if I get this, then you get that. Right, and I know that's it's a little counterintuitive to the book that I'm reading, which is essentially like there is no win-win. You know, it's a couple books that we've heard that's like that. There's no that win-win mentality is very rough to get.
Right, but what if somebody doesn't like? Even if you compromise, like, what if they don't consider it fair?
Yeah.
You know, but at that point, is it really a compromise, or is it you're just willing to give more than what? You take.
Absolutely, and it depends on what the subject is. So that's where I think it gets a lot really, you know, volatile in those things, because certain subjects hit different people on different nerves, you know. So it does actually change how and what people talk about in terms of that, because there's some things people just don't want to compromise at all, and there's some things that we shouldn't. When we talk about like base freedoms, you know, that everybody has or should have, a lot of those things should not be infringed. You know?
So it's okay to hold your ground.
In certain, and that's what we're going to talk about. Like, it is okay to hold your ground, but there are certain instances where it's like you're always holding your ground on everything, and you're not budging on everything, and then all of a sudden, you know, we don't have any basis for conversation. You know, right. So again, if that's the extreme, I was like, I'm holding my ground so much that I refuse to listen to any sort of argument that anybody else has. Now, again, is that a positive or a constructive sort of, you know, mentality, or?
But can't you hold your ground and then like still hear what they're saying and believe in what you believe in very closely?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you can do that, absolutely, but at what point it's a very thin line to go like, hey, you know, I believe in something so much, but I refuse to listen to anybody else that says that. You know, you're holding your ground. That's an extreme behavior, right? That is very much an extreme behavior, no matter in any which way, whether you feel righteous or not. But again, at what point do you become almost inhumane in that sort of sense, where you've broken down communication to where it's like, no, you're no longer listening. You're listening to reply. You're not listening to understand.
Right, but I feel like sometimes, like, when you're holding your ground, it's seen as, like, somebody who's strong, somebody who really believes in their, you know, beliefs, right?
Yeah.
And isn't that usually it's seen as a good thing?
Yes, and why? Movies. Because of movies, and that's kind of the point there that I was going, like, when we talk about movies and story, and we talk about relating to people and how it actually relates to people back and forth with our emotions, right? It's the emotional connection that makes it feel like we're empathetic. That blank slate is what I've heard it, or 0 point, where you have that logical understanding of communication and everything. That's a different part of your brain. So activating two different parts of your brain, and entertainment, all many times really focuses purely on the emotional side, right? So we see that constantly, and again, it's funny because we've talked about this a lot. Is that entertainment is fiction? It's not real.
Yeah.
But you think about it, like our society runs so much on that, and we connect to those things so much that those emotional decisions that are moving to extreme, it's like we glorify it. And that could go all the way back to
Talking about like Tom Cruise and his little outbursts.
extreme behavior. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, he's so righteous, but it's at this whole extreme. It was outside of and at what point we talked about people being emotional dumpsters, right? Or treating others like emotional dumpsters, where they're not dealing with all. He's so stressed out, but he's so righteous that he's justified in taking out his emotions on anybody. Again, fairness, man. That's not fair to the crew. And he's running off of this principle of, I call faux altruism. Look, I'm being a jerk for your sake and everybody's sake. And you're just going to have to take it. Or, your livelihood that you got hired for this job, not that, correct it or anything. Your livelihood, I'm just going to cut it off. Because you are not an ally, in sort of sense. Again, like blowing up on people for seeing them. It wasn't even like, from my understanding, there wasn't even a warning. It was like, it just happened and like, boom, just clicked off safe. It was ridiculous, man.
Right. Well, what about even seeing things in people's, putting yourself in somebody's shoes, right?
Yep.
We don't know what that person was doing or what they were going through, or, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's taught a lot now. Not a lot, but like around me, it's been taught a lot. Like, you want to put yourself in that person's shoes, and you want to be able to see, like, oh, let them have the reaction they're going to have,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately you control yours, right? And if somebody's going to have a bad attitude, you can choose whether or not you want that to affect you, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So I was thinking about it whenever we
Got
covered up on
lost.
this thing. Yeah, sorry, my allergies are starting to act up again. I was thinking about this the actually last night, and I was like, you know what the most humane thing that someone can do is? You know what it is?
Smile?
No,
Thank them?
the most humane thing that you can do is feeling an emotion, a base emotion of either anger or frustration or whatever, and feeling like you want to lash out and choosing not to. And if you really think about that, and I think I've said this, I think we've talked about this before, and it always used to get me. It was a line in The Matrix where was it the young kid? He's like, oh, if we deny our emotions, we deny the very thing that makes us human. And I was like, what a crock of whew. It's like, that is not how that goes, because animals, run off of, our instinctual nature runs off of emotions. Those quick decisions, feels like danger, I'm going to take off. That's it. Done and done. There is no, like, that doesn't make us human per se. Like I said, the most humane thing we can do is we can feel that, but our higher brain function, which is the other side of what separates us from animals and instinctually, can counteract that and go, you feel it, but don't. Right? That's like going...
But isn't that different than emotion?
No. It's not really. All of our survival instincts are based off of emotions, on how we feel. And it really stems off of that fear of, well, I'm going to be attacked. That's why our systems are literally built into...
What does it say?
Don't worry about that.
Oh.
That's why our systems are literally built off of that, because, just like animals, we have emotions, and we use those emotions to make those decisions. Now, there is a different side to it where you can say, well, and I think I've said this too, your higher brain function, if we all purely thought logically 24/7, it would be much more difficult to make decisions because, well, we're not we're not using our emotions to go and drive us into something. And unfortunately, that's where politics and our political figures, our politicians, many times get caught up and forget that they're supposed to come back to a place of zero so we can create policy overall, so we're not overacting or overreacting, or they're not overreacting emotionally, you know, to make change. So when I hear stuff like, they're no longer, we're not going to listen to them, we're just going to fight them on every step of the way, it's like, wow, that is a terrible, terrible policy. Because if you're trying to be the most humane, the most fair in policy, which I believe that's where we should be, the most fair is in policy that applies to many, many, millions of people, that gets into this whole hairy subject of like, well, how do they elicit change? Well, they are going to appeal to emotions for that, but they got to remember, hey, you're still there for it. This is why I don't like the whole bipartisan style government where it's like, you're either with me or against me. You're on this subject or you're not.
It's extremism again, right?
It's extremism again. And again, like it works in movies all the time because it literally highlights our instinctual habits.
And it builds tension, too.
And it builds tension. That's the thing. It builds tension. But always believing, like, and I've said this, I think it was last week I said this, where nobody believes what they believe because they think they're wrong. So always believing you're right, period, and as that there's no other view to have, like that is that is literally like a style of, say, dictatorship. You believe what I believe, or else. That's conformity, right? They don't want compliance, they want conformity, right? They want you to do as I do, that's it. And they feel like it's the most fair without actually necessarily being the most fair, okay? And that's where I always come off as like, what I talked about, full altruism, right? Full altruism is like Tom Cruise going off on people, like, hey, I'm doing this for the betterment of humanity. The whole idea of when people say I'm saving the earth, like, you're not saving the earth, you're saving your own behind. That's essentially what it is. It is an egotistical thing, as if the earth needs us to survive.
So what is it? I forget what it's called. So their thought was to save the earth, but it was more egotistic than what it was. Intention. Their intention was that on saving the earth, right?
Correct. So their intention was like, I'm based off like, oh, we have to save the earth. The earth is dying. I'm like, no, earth is gonna survive. George Carlin used to say it's like Mother Planet's gonna be fine. Mother Earth's gonna be fine. Long after we're gone, the Earth is still gonna be here and still doing its thing. It's nothing to do with saving the Earth. It has everything to do with saving, ourselves, in that sort of sense. And even then, a lot of the studies are taken, again, in that emotional state and have been used to elicit those emotions and have been skewed so far to go, oh my gosh, we're going to die by 2030. It is the dumbest thing in the world if you actually look and read the science and interpret the facts for it. That there are parts of it that it's like that we're not gonna, the whole idea of we're gonna die out as a species in 2030 came from an old study because there weren't other studies to show that we can still sustain food production with I believe it was a 4-degree increase in temperature. And that was because there were no studies that were done at that time. And it was a question, but somebody read that, a reporter read that and went, oh my gosh, we're going to die. We're going to die by 2030. I got to tell the world because that's our survival. That's what we need to do. We need to change. Everything needs to change. And then they started using that for political policy to drive other policies. And that's, again, where you get it wrong. A lot of politicians I've heard of that try to push this whole idea of saving the planet or saving the future generations with it. It's like they use that point to essentially drive and hide other policies that they want to change. So instead of dealing just with one, and this is why, it took so long to get like the whole stimulus package from last year and this year and all this other, crap that's going on, is because there's all these other parts that They're going and they're leading with a single thing. Hey guys, we want to get you those $1,400 checks. All right, then what is the rest of that bill that you're not talking about? You know,
Okay.
wasn't one of them like a 500-page bill or
Oh,
5,000, 5,000 something? I forget which one it was. And they try to pass that. It's like, guys, this is for the betterment of you. We're trying to get you your money. It's for you. Okay, well, what's the rest of this stuff that you're throwing out there? You know, just trust us. Trust us. We're good. We're good. Right? But trying to move on to that extreme behavior of like, look, I'm leaning so heavily into this subject. You. We're here for 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 you. Trust us. You know, that's a terrible, terrible policy. It's not necessarily fair, and it's corrupt. You know, but that sort of extremism, again, it runs along the lines of that whole I'm saving our future by, say, that's another trope that we do. I'm saving our future, humankind's future, by genocide. The planet will only survive through genocide. That's a very common trope that I'm thinking of a few different movies, and I'm losing the names of them right now. I'm like, oh. But yeah, I mean, that's something that we use in a lot of them. That is typically the villain. That's one thing we talk about too when we talk about creating characters. Is the villain doesn't necessarily see themselves as a villain, right? They typically see themselves as the righteous one, right? That's that faux altruism that we talk about. They've gone to an extreme. Look, the only way that the earth and life and people and children are going to survive is if we happen to wipe out half of humanity. That's how it works, right? Snap of a finger. I'm the most humane, right? It's really it's an extreme, and you get a lot of people today, especially politicians, that run off of that. Okay, but can you blame them when we've got everything that drives our free time, especially now that we don't have, you know, or a lot of times we didn't have, a lot of places didn't have extracurricular activities that we would do, going outside, you know, so we get stuck watching media on social media and entertainment.
You don't understand how many people who don't really watch the news that I saw turn to the news last year, and that's all they watched, and all they watched was one channel.
Yep. That was, you know, I'm not going to say it because that might get me in trouble. I know, but there was an incident that whole one channel, just listen to one channel. You know, that was one thing I respected my dad for. And honestly, I got into watching more news within this last year. Mm-hmm. You know? And something I respect my dad is, like, he never listened just to one side, just to one channel. He'd flip back and forth to go, what are they saying? What do they say? Because the truth is somewhere generally in the middle. Because you've got extreme versus extreme, and it's hard to sort out the details, but that's what we get. That's what we get in the media, because they are there, you know, as almost like as entertainment. There's a lot of, well, if not most of the news stations that aren't reporting on news anymore. It's essentially a sensationalism, right? It's literally acting like the movies.
It's a writer's blog.
Yeah, it's kind of like a writer's blog, but the other side of it is why do people go to the movies? Why do people go dive into escape reality? It's escapism, right? Escaping the stresses of today. Now think about that. If it, as such, it's like, okay, I can just let out all those base emotions and stress and be like, yeah, and I can connect with that character. Now, what happens when you get a ton of people that no longer, that are no longer thinking on a rational level on an everyday basis, because that's all they're doing is being pushed towards some sort of extreme behavior? Well, now you got conflict, major conflict. That's the whole point of story, is conflict, you know, and resolution of conflict. And the idea that every story, majority of stories actually, end on a positive note, where your protagonists, whether you consider them a hero or not, again, they're a hero in their own eyes, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a hero, almost always comes out on top. If you act extreme, you will come out on top. Again, that's driven so hard into us, and it's almost all over, everywhere in movies and in story.
Is it really though how it is sometimes? Because I feel like it's just like that small change, right? Something that they believe so hard in the beginning, and then it's that change at
Yeah.
the end for protagonists. Usually.
Escalation. It's the escalation of conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing, and the better ones have an idea in the beginning, but it causes a conflict. All right. When they go into Act 2, it's essentially like a brand new world, something that they're unfamiliar with, that they're confronted with, and it challenges everything. And halfway through Act 2, they realize, oh, everything that I've learned beforehand isn't working, so I have to shift. I fought what we call the lie. I fought the lie, which is an internal thing of themselves, something they believe that's been holding them back, So I need to transition. Now, they try to transition while still maintaining their old self through the second half of Act 2. And by the end of Act 2, something big happens where it completely uproots them. Excuse me, they hit like the pit of despair, and everything they thought is just done. It seems like all is lost, everything is done and gone. Then enter Act 3, where something drives them into a new idea, and now they combine their older self and their newer self of this new revelation into something bigger and newer, to where it's more complete, and then set off a new plan. And of course, there's still resistance to that plan, and then all of a sudden, they overcome.
Is that like a compromise with yourself?
Kind of. Yeah, I mean, if you can see it, that can go on many, many different levels, but yes. And that's one part that I do agree with, like saying, hey, it only works in movies, but or that this like does it only work in movies, and it's like yes and no, because the biggest thing is that we do grow through adversity. We're literally psychologically and physically built to grow through adversity. When you go, how do you build muscle?
Protein? I don't know. Somebody asked me that today, and I was like, I don't know how to do.
Okay, well, how do you stimulate that growth then? Because you can eat protein, but not necessarily.
Strength training.
Strength training, resistance training, right? Strength training, resistance training. You must apply resistance to your muscles for them to grow. The same applies to maturity in the mind, etc., etc.
Your brain's a muscle, right?
Your brain is.
I don't know.
It's like
it's got muscles.
Yeah, it's like action.
You see Xavier and X-Men is like.
That's why he's always like, oh. Anyway, but along those lines, it's still the same thing. We do grow through adversity, but a lot of times, again, just like that protagonist of that story, we lose track. We lose track of where we're going and what we're trying to do, or we get so caught up in that. And here's the thing. In movies, it is usually a single incident where someone can change, right? This whole incident, which starts from the inciting incident, right, in Act 1, and drives them through this whole story, it changes their life. The difference is most people don't have those incidents, right? So they are constantly stuck in their Act 1. They're constantly stuck with that lie of, if I believe this, I will be righteous, I will win, I will do this all the time. And that was it. Not realizing, hey, all these other sides of entertainment, again, fiction that we appreciate and connect to, it's literally like the acknowledgement of the lie within themselves to go, hey, why am I still not winning? So yeah, it is like that compromise, in yourself that can actually, it's what we appreciate. Like, hell, that's the dream. It's like, that's the dream. I wanna change the world, sort of thing. But not realizing, again, you got to realize that internal side of yourself, and you can't hate or love anything about anybody else unless you hate or love that about yourself.
I think people forget though. It's like nobody can help you but you.
Yeah. During that. But it really starts with us, because what's the only thing that we can control?
Ourselves,
To an extent, yeah.
right?
Can you
I'm
control
a-
your heartbeat? That was one of the things.
Don't
It's
try.
like
It just looks like you're constipated.
it's like that was one of the points that was made. It's like you can, to an extent. Like, can you control, like, you could control, like, even your thoughts. Can you control your thoughts?
Yes. Well.
To an extent, right? This is what I'm talking about. There are certain aspects of yourself that you can't control, but the most humane thing is, again, choosing. Your choice is what you can control. That's the only thing you can control. The moment you try to control other people is the moment you're running off of this idea, like, I can, one thing, it's like saying I can make a tsunami, right? When you're in the ocean, you're only making waves around you because your choice is to do something. Now there's this whole other side of, like, I'm not even going to get into mega tsunamis and how they actually work and whatnot, and I'm trying to make these bigger changes by using technology and all this other stuff.
So what you're in control of is what you choose to do.
Yeah, what you do,
With
what you
yourself.
choose to do. Yes. And again, like, when it starts getting into politics and everything, like, I do believe that politicians, here's where I see the balance of politicians should be. They should elicit some sort of emotion when they're speaking out to people to gain traction to get elected. That's essentially what it is. It's one big popularity contest, which is ridiculous. I think that's high school all over again. And they run off of things that sound good. They'll say things that sound good. That was one thing that I really liked about the brazenness of Trump, was you didn't necessarily have to guess what he was going to. He was so egotistical anyway that he told you what he was going to do. Now with every other politician, you got to guess. Are they actually going to do that? Are they saying it? Or are they going to reinvent something and take it as their own? I just saw that. It's like, what is that? You had someone's like, I made this. You're like, you made this. And all of a sudden it's like, I made this.
My favorite is Timon and Pumbaa.
Yeah.
Like, what if he's on our side?
Hey, what if he's on our side? It's like, who's the brain in this operation?
I forget.
Yeah. That's a real thing, though. That's taking these ideas as if they're your own. It's
I can get it if you get confused, if you forgot. You know?
Oh, no, that's the thing, is these politicians don't forget.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about for a person, like an average person.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, but that's again where I kind of see where the balance can be, is like you elicit that emotion to gain traction and essentially popularity. However, when it comes to policy, you got to take your head out of that hole and get back to a place of compromise, of 0 point, of balance, so then you can talk and actually have a conversation about real policy. Nope, it's politics for the longest time have been sensationalized, just like the media has.
Politics
and it's
film.
been like movie. Yeah, not just in film. In film, what do you mean in film?
We talked about that last time.
What do you mean in film? Politics in film, as in,
like
in the story.
When we were talking about politics in film, like people trying to be didactic, right?
Oh, okay. So you're saying it not necessarily in film, as in part of the story, in the story world, but actually extending out to the audience.
Right. Because it's like, if it's in the story and it's meant to be in the story, then that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's not, right?
Yep. Then that's where it becomes a problem. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when you're trying to do this again, this gets into the policy for that too. It's like, now you got people like AOC that's coming out, who's just completely an extremist. There's no way looking, seeing it any other way. She is an extremist. She's very open and loud about it all over the place, and it's like that Greta Thunberg, like, how dare you, like, but she's using that sort of mentality to make policy, which is incorrect, because again, you want that, if you're going to do that and talk about that, when it comes down to sit and talk with people, it's like, nope, there is no talking to them. There is no humanity in that. It is my way or the highway. That is a form of, in a sense, dictatorship. That was one thing I didn't like too, that a lot of people were throwing around because the media was throwing around a lot, during the last 4 years, was they try to go, oh, Trump is a dictator. He's a dictator. He's dictator. Like, man, y'all need to know what living under a real dictator is like, because you guys forgot. Like, the world forgot. The United States forgot, because there are people that are living under dictatorship, and they don't realize, like, oh, that's what it would really be like. No, you're just throwing out all these ideas, and you're in that extreme behavior because that's what we're fed, right? News became entertainment. It became so sensationalized, it started to become fiction in itself. So much so that they started to literally lie, and there was that whole Time magazine article of a shadow cabal literally taken out of a movie. Now they want you to know we did such a righteous thing by lying to you and to the millions of people and manipulating media and changing the election to election laws for their benefit, fortifying the election. This is literally a Time magazine article because they want you to know how righteous and right they were in their extremism, just like out of a movie. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. Let me lie to you to elicit a change for your benefit. Who are you, singular person or group of people, you shadow cabal, to tell me or anybody else that feels their own way that you're wrong in wanting to live your own life? There is this group, and I think what do they call it? It's called like the silent majority is what it used to be called. People just want to live their lives. There is that group that's completely different than what you see in movies. They just want to live out their lives. Don't bother me. I'm doing my own thing. I'm not hurting anybody. Just let me live out my damn life. Nope. Now you're forcing policies onto them that interrupts that. But they're the enemy somehow? Nope. You must live and conform to our style of life. Or else. Or else what? That or else one is the one that gets it. This whole idea of cancel culture and how they go to the extreme. I think I just saw there was one organization where one person tweeted something. One person tweeted a reply that had like 2 followers. And an advertisement company, a business company, removed their endorsement and their advertisement from that other company based off of one person's tweet. A random anonymous profile that had like 2 followers, and now they took away business. Like, you realize you've known their stance on whatever the subject was for years, and that the incident that they brought up was like 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. And it was like, really, dude? One person, one anonymous person, 2 followers. That's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, nitpicking. And now it's like, no. I gotta just kill it off. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's absolutely ridiculous and childish and petty as hell, man. But that's where we're at right now. But media, again, as sensationalized escapism. Why is it that there were so many people that watched the news and got into the news within the past 4 years? Because sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I forgot now.
No, because it was sensationalized. Because it was like watching a movie. Why do people watch reality TV?
It's entertainment. It's drama.
It's drama. There is that extremism.
I think it's funny people are like, I don't like drama.
Yeah. Yeah, what is that? I don't like drama.
It's like this.
Yeah.
I'm not looking, but, it's not me.
Yes. But people are already drawn to reality TV, which, again, it's not real life.
I get it.
Even unscripted reality TV is scripted. Just saying. It's still scripted.
They literally say that when you go to get hired, they're looking for somebody who for like, oh, it's unscripted, but we have a script. This
Yep.
is what we're following. This is what we're doing.
Yes, they have a script.
If you guys didn't know that.
It's funny. It's really funny because it's, again, yeah, people don't realize this stuff. We start working in the industry and start studying up on a lot of these things. It's like, that makes sense. But again, why did so many people run to the media for it? Because it was sensationalized. It was entertainment. You had high emotions. That's why the media loved Trump. As much as they don't want to admit it, you know that all these media stations got hit. I forget what the report was. It was just a couple weeks ago. Like, we're down. Their viewership went down by like 40%. Like, across the board, like 40%. Like,
wow.
Nope, because they got nothing to talk about. Trump was good for the media, for their stations. It was ridiculous, man.
The people were like, they'll watch the Kardashians and be like, oh, they're so real, they're so raw, you know, they're so like just normal people. And then like they get Trump on there and he's like, he's such a bad dude and this and that. And I was like, you guys, it's so funny.
It's ridiculous. It's a double standard, right? My way or the highway. Like, you inform your own level of entertainment, but not realizing that there are other forms of entertainment. Like, no, we can't do that. No. And that kind of goes back to that whole idea of, how people just hated the actor who played King Joffrey.
Oh yeah, him
or
and
Cersei
too.
Yeah, just hated them. They'd literally get people in real life going and talking smack to their faces when they're out there for the fans, like, hey, signing, doing giving their autographs to people, or doing photo ops, and people literally going off on them like, dude.
Did people forget, like, did they not know reality versus like fictional?
Nope.
Stuff?
And unfortunately, when you get stuff like this happening in the news, all of a sudden you cross that barrier. So again, kind of going back to that subject of, does extremism only work in movies? You almost want to say yes, right? And then you flip the other side to it. It's because again, it's like you always see some sort of how do you end a movie, right? It has to have some sort of closure of this conflict. And when it's done properly, when you have an open ending, it's like, oh, there's more to be done. Okay, but that's usually a separate storyline, a separate conflict. Even if it's related to the first one, it's a separate conflict. But to resolve this conflict is a single movie, right? That can come down to series 2 in a single episode or a single season, And then you get into these really, really long ones, like, it's actually funny because anime does this notoriously. They have these huge long arcs of like 50 or 60 different episodes just on a single arc, but it's still broken up into seasons, which is kind of weird. But series are starting to do that, like live action series have been doing that for a while too, like especially, not limited series, I'm sorry, let me take that back. But these series like, what's a good one? Westworld.
Oh.
Westworld season 1. No spoilers. If you haven't, I think we stopped after season 2, right?
Season 1 or season 2? Season 2.
Season 2, right? In the middle of season 1 or the end of season 1, it didn't resolve the conflict, but they had to stop it because of production. They needed to film the rest of it, and by the end of season 2, they resolved that conflict. And I'm like, well, actually, both of us were kind of like that. Well, I don't want to watch season 3 because season 1's conflict was so good, it didn't continue on in a way, and it was already kind of built up in a way of like season 1, okay, we're not ending that conflict, we're just building it up. And then season 2, it was like, okay, now we're done. Nope, there's a season 3, and we never went back. But that whole idea of, again, that ending on a season or ending a movie usually has some form of closure, right? And that's what I think a lot of people are looking for. And that's honestly, that was literally the presidential elections from last year. They wanted some sort of closure. And what happened? Oh, movie's done. 40% drop because people stopped watching. Not realizing, hey, that's not how reality works. So again, there is an argument to say, like, yeah, extremism only really works in movies. However, it's still a reflection of reality. And again, on the other side of it, You know, a lot of our wars and where we came at now only happen, only happen through extreme behaviors, right? War is an extreme behavior. So when again, I'd like to think that we've come such a long way intellectually, ideologically, to where we can actually sit down and recognize the differences between our lower brains and higher brains, especially in politics and creating policy, but even around the world. When people are like, look at that country, look at this country, look at what they're doing, look at that, it's like, y'all are forgetting that even these countries have their own problems. People like to go to the extreme and only look at that one side. Let's just look at, like, the grass is green on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What was there was that meme I just saw the other day. It's like, maybe the grass is greener on the other side because you're not over there effing it up. It's like, yeah. In this whole one size fits all ideas, like, look, we just need to do what they're doing. I'm like, they don't run the same way we do. Different countries have their own history, have their own flow, have their own energy and how their policies that they've known about. And just saying, like, we just need to do what they do, it's massively, like, one-sided, and you can't really see it. It's run off of an emotional, in an emotional context. Even though it may seem like that's the whole rationalization side. It may seem like it's illogical, but it works for them. Just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for us. And people forget that. So again, coming back to that 0 point, coming back to that blank slate, coming back to that higher brain function to go, hey, we need to take a step back, take a breath, realize if you're talking about policy, especially when it's going to affect millions, maybe we should actually listen to understand what the opposition is saying. Because if I enter in with an extreme behavior, the tendency is going to be an extreme response. Like, I don't know why people think that that's any sort of way. If I came in, figuratively, guns blazing, right? You're gonna want to come and take me down. That's it. But then again, like, if I come in friendly and open and ready to talk, okay, much more willing. And honestly, when you get into people that are, like, corrupt politicians, a lot of politicians that are like that, you can't tell if that's a tactic that they're using. Hey, I'm here to help you. Are they really? Or are they just saying that? It's like people
Like
can lie or something.
Clothing.
Absolutely. It's like people
Forget
can
about
lie.
that?
Yeah. That's why I love fairy tales. The idea of fairy tales. It's funny because, like I said, people always take, like, say, the Bible so literally, forgetting that it's full of parables, like teaching moments, which is the exact same thing that fairy tales and oral history was for. That's the whole purpose of it. But it's like, you don't hear people going, oh, you believe in Hansel and Gretel, like there's supposed to be a house made out of what was it, of sweets and everything like that. You're an idiot. Like, dude, it's literally life lessons to learn. But again, people stop listening to understand, they start listening to respond. That's that extreme sort of behavior, right? They don't want to listen. That's why I said, where's the balance? Trying to find the balance between the two. Using emotions are going to be there to drive decision. That's just how it works. But you can also move forward with a much more level-headedness if you just take your head out of that hole. I want to put it that way. And then be the most humane style of person that you can be, where you do get back to that blank slate, get back to that 0 point. If your emotions are flaring up, you're going to feel the way you're going to feel. I've said this many, many times to many, many people. You're going to feel the way you're going to feel. The difference is how you choose to proceed with it.
I don't know. Kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation, it's like when you mentioned that emotions, like in the movie The Matrix, they mentioned that emotions make us human, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I kind of agree. I kind of agree with that, because there's times where the emotions do help with people, giving that sort of empathy, or building that sort of relationship with somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's based off emotions, So, and it makes you seem more human because you're able to understand, right? More.
So okay, playing off of that, all right. If my emotion is anger towards somebody, is that more human then?
It's a human emotion.
But does that make me more humane?
No.
Why not? If you're, again, that's just looking onto the one side of emotions. You're looking at the positive side of connection and empathy and things, or not even empathy, just that connection of my emotions connected to somebody else. But those emotions, especially those base emotions, what I'm talking about, do include anger, right? And that lashing out and that knee jerk of, like, say, let's put it this way. Upon that premise, on the extreme level, right? And this I'm not advocating for this, just gonna say that out here. Upon that same level means spousal abuse, because their emotions are so high, is justified. That's what that kind of runs along when you go to the extreme. And again, I'm not advocating. I do not stay in an abusive relationship,
right.
If you're in one.
But there is a give and take, right? There is a good side to emotions, and then there's a bad side to emotions, right?
Yes, so that's exactly why I said the most humane thing. Again, animals run purely off of emotion. That's not what makes us human. When we talk about being humane, and when we talk about empathy is a higher brain function. It is not a lower brain function where a lot of those base emotions are originating from. So, like I said, if you take that to where it's like, well, my emotions are my emotions, and that's what makes us human. But a lot of times, again, that knee-jerk reaction to lash out or even to be violent is based off of those base emotions.
True.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what's the difference then? Because an animal doesn't know. It doesn't necessarily. A lot of times, doesn't necessarily choose to be violent against something. It just does, right? Think about a pet that, for whatever reason, just lashes out at you out of nowhere, and you're wondering, like, what's going on, right? Well, it's just their natural instincts. Again, it doesn't separate us from that. So our humanity is based off of a higher brain function where we actually can choose, despite feeling those same feelings, choose not to. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why I said, like,
I get higher based.
Yes.
Emotion.
Like I said, empathy is a higher brain function, and that's why I said, like, I get what he's trying to get at. It's a way to connect us, because we do connect with Mother Nature and animals and life and everything else, because we're built the same way. However, what separates us is that higher brain function, to where we can get to a 0 point where we can use logic to actually talk, and then that's how we get, like, you know, anything from, like, governments and mandates across, you know, millions of people, all the way down to how we also get art. You know, a lot of them can recognize art, you know, and then can discuss it and have stuff like this and have technology and stuff like that. Do they have a technology?
No.
That's what I'm
but
saying.
But I think about, like, their higher functions.
So how developed is that? The most probably developed animal here, you know, that aside from us, are dolphins. Highly intelligent, but they don't have that technology. They don't have stuff that has been able to spread across there, because they're not. They don't overrun the cities. You know, they don't the seas, right?
The other guys, when he's like, I'm gonna be a dolphin and we're gonna develop a breathing apparatus.
Dude, they can't do it because, again, they don't have opposable thumbs. They don't have the appendages to make those things to enhance that. And so then they can, and not just that, but but technology, if you think about technology in that sort of sense, technology has expanded our reach. Just think about the digital era on its own. Our ability to gain access to information has turned from, oh, we didn't hear about this because it's been years or even, like, decades, you know, because you're overseas, now to at the click of your, you know, just the click of the mouse, and you have that information available to you. So technology is a part of that sign of enhancing intelligence, because, again, what if this dolphin on one side of the world needed to communicate to this other dolphin across across the world? They can't. they're
CIA dolphins.
It's like
Secret intelligent dolphins.
So yeah, but they don't have that to streamline their communication, because that's why communication is so key. And that's why a lot of people have a problem with censorship. You're taking away these platforms that literally millions of people have on there, because there's no counteractive policies to be like, hey, you can't just kick people off when it's a point of now the world operates off of this. There needs to be changes of policy and fairness that actually is across the board, to where you're not infringing on, people's livelihoods. You're literally, people that are advocating like, well, hey, it's a private company. It's like, don't realize, Facebook and even Twitter and Instagram and all them, companies rely on that. And those companies which hire out, sometimes thousands of people, those are thousands of people's lives. You're going, nah, you guys don't deserve those. Because you happen to have a separate belief. Is that fair?
Difference of opinion.
You have a difference of opinion, and if they decide to drop you, then forget you guys, because it doesn't affect me. But I guarantee you, if you lost your job because of that, it'd be a very big deal, right? So that whole one-sided extreme sort of mentality, it can help, but you're to me, it's really running off of this old belief of extremism, where violence solved everything. And if we want to move away from actually saying violence doesn't solve anything, then we have to take out a lot of that volatile style speak that we have and are speaking to each other with, especially, again, on social media and just on the regular. It needs to be taken out and coming back to a point of a 0 point, to where we can talk to each other and start going back to that higher brain function, to where we can compromise, or at least have a conversation without being so driven by our emotions. So, do you have any last thoughts that we got on here?
No, I'm just thinking about all the things I need to go do for work.
I know. All right, and that's our time. Thank you guys for joining us on this for another live lunch. Hopefully, we'd love to see your guys' comments, so you can comment below. We'll read them. Patreon? Yeah, we mentioned that. So again, if you like these sort of conversations, again, every Tuesday, Thursday at 12 Pacific Standard Time for now. Hit that subscribe button below. You can support us at patreon.com/HideHooliganFilms. And you can also buy any of our RPG IRL shirts. Again, we're coming out with new designs on thewanderingkiltsman.com/shop. All great stuff. And yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us, or just go off on these things. These are the types of things that we like to talk about. And when it comes down to entertainment, being able to separate that reality versus fiction, becomes a really important trait. So, have a great one. It's only Tuesday.
Only Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll see you guys Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.